Hey guys, it's Dr. Hayes, and this is the video about characters in children's literature with physical disabilities or mental disabilities of some kind. And so I'm recording this. This is a little bit of an introductory clip. You're getting another video this week that's edited together from a discussion I did of books some months ago of characters with disabilities, and so I thought I would reuse a clip of that. And so that'll be starting here just in a minute, and then I'll come back at the end. I have a little bit of one more thing to say at the end after that. You'll notice at the beginning of this clip that I'm putting in the main part of the video, I start talking about characters with disabilities, and then I remember, oh whoops, I forgot to mention one of the a story that has orphans in it. So the very beginning of this is a follow-up thought to the discussion we had last week about characters who are orphans in children's literature. Then I get into the characters with disabilities discussion. And so I wanted to just kind of record this introductory statement, because otherwise the video, I spliced it out of another one and it starts right where I'm about to start talking about it. So I'm about to change shirts and everything, and I'm talking to you about disabilities, and then I'll see you at the end again after that. Okay. The next group I want to talk about is characters who have some sort of a disability, physical disability or mental disability. I don't have all of them. Oh, I almost forgot an orphan. Frozen. The story Frozen has, Elsa and Anna, their parents die when they're young, and that's a movie, I know, but films a lot of times are included in the realm of children's literature, so I don't want to leave them out. And fairy tales, there are a lot of examples of orphaned children in fairy tales. Probably the one that comes to mind the most is maybe Snow White counts. I don't know if the evil queen, if that's her stepmother, maybe. I guess there are a lot of characters in fairy tales that have evil parents, or one evil parent, or something like that, more so than being orphaned. Okay, so anyway, characters where there's a mental or physical disability. For this collection, the earliest one I have is Louisa May Alcott's Little Men. This is the sequel to Little Women. In Little Women, you kind of had a character with Beth, who got scarlet fever as a young girl, and so was an invalid and sick for most of her life until she died. I wanted to mention Little Men because Little Men is set in a school. So at the end of Little Women, Jo gets the school, and she and Friedrich are going to set up a school. Well, Little Men is all about the school. And one of the characters has a, I don't know what they never say, but he's slow. I don't know that they would have had categories for like various learning disabilities and mental disabilities back then, but they talk about how he's slow. But what's great about the book is that the school accommodates his learning style, and like they give him tasks that are appropriate to his abilities, but that will still edify him and have him learn something from it, right? And the other students in the school are very patient and protective of this student who is mentally, deficient. I don't know what you'd call it, but it's actually pretty encouraging. Little Men was published in 1871, so it's like the earliest example I have of a book that was published with if you don't think of Beth and Little Women, which was in the 1860s, but yeah, so that's like an early example. Little Men. I also have The Little House on the Prairie. I just pulled the first one, Little House in the Big Woods, because Mary, the older sister, is blind. So her blindness is a big plot point in the novel, how they have to raise money for her to go to school and do things around the house to accommodate her physical disability where she can't see. So I know when I was growing up and reading about Mary being blind, it was a huge sort of deal for me to be exposed to that as a part of their lives. And it was as much a part of their lives as keeping the fire going and taking care of, the animals and sewing and washing. Helping Mary was like part of it. So I wanted to bring up Little House on the Prairie as an example as well. This is a Newbery Medal winner, Johnny Tremain. I don't know if y'all have ever heard of this. It was published in the 1940s. Oh, Little House on the Prairie was in the 1930s. 20s and 30s is when those books were published, by the way. Johnny Tremain, I read this book in middle school. It was published in the 1940s, but it's a period piece. It's a historical fiction set during the American Revolution, like colonial times. And the main character, Johnny Tremain, he is disfigured. He was apprenticing under a silversmith and got a really bad burn that disfigured his hand. And so, but he's like sort of this hero of this story. You can kind of see he's in this very heroic pose, right? Riding the horse on the beginning. So, I think it's a very important representation that he didn't start the book disfigured. He became disfigured in the course of the narrative, and then he emerged and overcame his disability to become like the hero of the story. So I think that's sort of significant, especially it was very 1940s sensibility, right? Like we were in World War II at the time. I think 1943 is when it came out, right in the middle of World War II. The sort of reminding Americans of who we are and what we're capable of, right? And it got the Newbery Medal. Like it's very much a portrait of like where we were at the time. Very interesting. And there were probably a lot of people returning home from war who were maimed, and this book was a way to show that they were still capable of greatness. I have another one. I don't know if you've read Harriet the Spy. I think this came out in the 60s. Yeah, 1960s. Harriet the Spy. I think there was a movie made out of it. Harriet's disability is a little bit, it's kind of invisible. She has, I don't think that they ever say, but it would be like a social disorder, or maybe even like bipolar, or some sort of a extreme social anxiety. But she keeps a journal, and she has these sort of quirky compulsions that she has to do to sort of cope, and she ends up at one point toward the end, it kind of reaches a climax, and she ends up going to a therapist. So I mean, that's pretty revolutionary for a young character to be going through those things in a book in the 1960s. So I think Harriet the Spy sort of stands out in those ways because of that. Like it was very open about how she wasn't okay, and like the adults in her life recognized that she wasn't okay, and they got her somebody to talk to, and that's important. Harriet the Spy. Another one I have, 1970. E.B. White, the Trumpet of the Swan. E.B. White is most famous for Charlotte's Web and also Stuart Little, but he also wrote this one, The Trumpet of the Swan. And this is about a disabled swan. This trumpeter swan is the breed, and it has this sort of distinct trumpet sounding honk that it does, and that's its mating call, and that's how it impresses the females of the species to get a mate. Well, it's about this swan who's born without a honk. Like he's disabled, he's mute, right? Which is very similar to Mary being hearing impaired. This swan is not hearing impaired, vision impaired. Sorry, Mary in Little House on the Prairie is vision impaired. This swan is mute, and so it's all about this boy who befriends him, and like they get him like basically a prosthetic. They get him like a trumpet instrument that he sort of uses to impress the most beautiful swan who he has a crush on, and she ends up falling in love with him too. So it's about this sort of disabled swan who gets the prosthetic, and he gets the girl. Basically, it's very adorable, but it's it's about a character with a disability. Similarly, another Newbery winner, The Tale of Despero. This had a movie made about it. Despero. Kate DiCamillo. I just love her. I've seen her speak live, and I met her, and she signed a bunch of my books. Was this one of them? Yeah, this is the one she signed for Sarah, and she was just really great. But Despero sort of is famous for not having a tail. His tail was cut off, and so he has all of these things that he does. Like in here, you can see he's tied a needle to him to be like his tail, and so his lack of a tail is sort of a it's kind of a mark of shame for a mouse to not have a tail, and it's a big part of their identity in this book, the culture that's been established in this book. And so he, it's discouraging for him to be part of it, but then he overcomes and he tries to compensate with different prosthetics and stuff. So it's an interesting thing where there's a character, an animal who needs enhancement. On that same note, while we're talking about animals with disabilities with enhancement, How to Train Your Dragon is another example of both main characters of that series have a prosthetic. The dragon, Toothless, has a prosthetic from the beginning. He's missing part of his tail, and Hiccup makes him a prosthetic. Well, then Hiccup loses a foot, and so for all the rest of the movies in the series and the TV show and books that came out of it, Hiccup is an amputee. Like, he has a prosthetic, and it's just a part of his. It doesn't diminish his abilities at all. And so that's, I saw a great presentation at Children's Lit Conference last year about How to Train Your Dragon and the sort of how they get disability right, like the depiction of someone with a prosthetic, how they get it right. So while we were talking about, a tail that needed a mouse that needed a prosthetic for his tail, I thought I mentioned How to Train Your Dragon. Another book that I just absolutely love this book. It won the National Book Award. I would say that it's maybe middle school age or maybe high school age. It's got some heavy stuff in it, so maybe high school, but I think middle school could probably handle it. It's called When Zachary Beaver Came to Town, and it's about this small town and these boys who live in this town, and this trailer arrives in the town, and the guy pulling the trailer moves into a hotel or something. I don't remember exactly, but turns out inside the trailer is a humongous obese boy, Zachary Beaver, who cannot get out of the trailer. He lives in there. He's hundreds of pounds. And turns out that this man, I don't think it was his father, maybe it was an uncle or something, was his caretaker, and he takes him from town to town as sort of this spectacle. And so people come and look in the window, and he's like a freak, go see the freak, right? And so it's about these two boys who befriend him and sort of treat him with dignity. And that's the main plot. There's also, it's set during it came out during or right after Desert Storm, like the Iraq War in the 90s, but it's set sort of historically, like historical fiction, during the Vietnam or maybe the Korean War. I forget which one it was. It doesn't say on the back. But it's one of those where it's clear, all the stuff they're talking about the war, and one of the, the main character, his brother doesn't come home. Right, they get a telegram that he is, has been killed in battle. But it's, even though it's in the, set in the past, it's obviously talking about the Desert Storm. But it's just so interesting. If you're looking for something else to read, When Zachary Beaver Came to Town, it's really good. I don't know how else to explain it. We talked about this one a little bit already when we did fairy tales, but the Cinder series, the Lunar Chronicles series, Cinder, she is a cyborg, so she has a prosthetic robotic leg, and that's a big part of her identity and who she is, and having to accommodate her prosthetic, and has outgrown the prosthetic that she currently has, and she doesn't have the money to replace it, so she has an ill-fitting prosthetic. And the book sort of contemplates the plight of someone with a disability who needs an accommodation, who needs a disability but can't afford it, and they just have to kind of make do. That's a really interesting part of the book. We've talked about the Lunar Chronicles in class already, so I won't go into too much detail about that. Another one you're probably all familiar with, Percy Jackson, the Lightning Thief. He sort of famously has dyslexia. Like, he has a learning disability where he can't read, and you come to find out that that's sort of part of his heritage, like part of his birthright, is that he can't, the English is hard for him to read. But that is sort of a feature. He's the hero of the series, but he has this sort of feature that sort of holds him back in human society, right? He has this severe learning disability, and it has affected his ability to have success in the human world until he figures out what his lineage is and figures out his success. So Percy Jackson, dyslexia. Another famous recent example is Wonder. They made a movie, Julia Roberts was in the movie, and Owen Wilson was in it. And it was about a boy who was born extremely disfigured and has multiple surgeries, and it's all about his experiences in school and being bullied, but also making friends and coming sort of to terms with his identity. And it's just very, very good. Echo read this. A lot of elementary school kids read it, and I think he's in 5th grade. 5th or 6th grade is what Augie, the main character, is in. I don't remember exactly which. I think it's 5th grade. And so that's a lot of schools are having kids read it to sort of teach them how to interact with someone who's different, like in their school environment. Very good though. I have a couple of graphic novels. This one I got for Echo when she got braces. Echo had braces all last year, and she had them for about a year and a half. And so I got her this graphic novel about a girl in high school who has to get braces. And it's all about, like, she goes and it's her, like, you can see she's getting the impressions done, and she kind of spits out the impression. It's all about her having to have braces, and there's talking to boys and sort of being self-conscious about it. And look, she gets this retainer where she has a couple teeth missing. It's pretty great. Like, so I got this book for Echo to read whenever she got her braces, but it's about sort of going through, if you have, but this character didn't just need braces, she needed like a prosthetic for her 2 front teeth as well. So it was really good. Another graphic novel that I just absolutely love, it was a Newbery Honor. I think it should have won, but it's called El Defo. Let me let you see that really close. El Defo. And so the main character is this bunny rabbit who has hearing aids. I don't know if you can see, she's wearing these hearing aids, and then she wears the little receiver around her neck. And it's all about sort of her experiences in school wearing these hearing aids. And she has this sort of imaginary life where she has made up this superhero of herself, El Defo, right? Who, like, how would El Defo handle this situation, right? And so she sort of, in various circumstances where she's uncomfortable, she imagines that El Defo comes in. Right, here's a page where you can see she's imagining, an El Defo has shown up, right, and is handling the situation. So she kind of turns it into something that she takes control over. There's a really funny scene where it's embarrassing for her, but it's supposed to be funny also, where for her, the way her hearing aid works, it's supposed to be set like back in the 70s, I think, when technology wasn't very advanced, but she would wear this apparatus, kind of like a Walkman, like headphones in her ears, and wear this receiver like on her person, and then her teachers would wear this like microphone around their neck, like a necklace. And so when they were talking, it would go into that microphone and it would communicate with her hearing aids, and she could hear it they're talking, and there's a funny scene where like her gym teacher forgets he's wearing it and goes to the bathroom, and nobody else hears him in the bathroom, but she does, and her hearing aid is, she's so embarrassed, so there's like things like that. But there's a picture in the back of the author from elementary school, like with her hearing aid wires. It just kind of acknowledges the awkwardness of it, but also normalizes it as sort of something that you can endure and participate in. I have some picture books now. Madeline we already talked about, but I brought in Madeline because she, this sort of very encouraging, awesome scene where Madeline has to get her appendix out, and she's showing all the girls her scar and how she's super proud of her scar and her surgery, and all the girls are like, at the end, the last pictures, they're all crying, and the Mother Superior's like, why are you crying? She's like, we want a scar, like they want to be like her. So I put that in this stack because of that. I have a few picture books here. I know we're running a little long, but we'll get there. I have a few picture books here of characters with disabilities. Susan Laughs is one. So you get through the whole thing, and it's all about these actions that Susan does. Susan laughs. She sings. So it's, you see all these pictures, and it's different things she does. See that? She's in the bath. She's on the merry-go-round. She spins. She splashes. She's right. She's wrong. She's weak. She's strong. She looks like showing her doing her math homework. All these different things. But then you get to the end, and only when you get to the very last page do you realize that she is in a wheelchair. Because all of those activities that she does are not defined by her disability, right? Like all the pictures show her, and so it's one of those when you get to the end, you're like, oh, and you have to go back through and verify that none of the things she's doing show her standing up or show her, walking or anything like that. And so it's this very much empowering book about how her life is so full and rich, and oh yeah, she sits in a wheelchair, right? Some of the time. So I really love that book, Susan Laughs. This one is another one, just because, and it is about a brother and a sister. The sister is in a chair, and it's all about her and her brother, and they do make-believe, and it's all about the sort of make-believe games they play to incorporate her disability into their games. There's more depictions of the wheelchair in this one than in the Susan Laughs. This one they're imagining it's a rocket ship, like on the cover. Let's see. They're reading in bed. This is them cuddled up, asleep, and imagining all the fun stuff that they did. So it's just kind of it's a way that this brother and sister sort of are able to still have a fulfilling relationship, even though the sister's in a chair. I have these other two books that I got. My friend has Down syndrome, and my brother is autistic. So the audience for these books are more not readers who do have Down syndrome or do have autism, but for sort of typically brained children who don't have these things, who the adults in their lives want them to learn about it, right? So it's explaining all about, it was sort of a gentle stories that depict characters who are describing what it's like. Like this one's all about what it's like to have a friend who has Down syndrome. So she's talking all about it. And this is a counselor at a day camp who brings her friend with Down syndrome to the camp for the day so that the campers can like meet her and so that she can have fun. And it shows her, says she's Tammy was rather slow at some of the sports activities that we did, like running, races, and tag, but she was good at some other things. She was really good at arts and crafts, especially pottery. She could take a blob of clay and mold it into anything, even pretty plates and vases. And when it was time to show our talents at the show, I got very shy and wanted to quit, but Tammy made me feel brave and didn't let me give up. Right? It's sort of a depiction of her doing the pottery. And so it's sort of a way to explain, people with Down syndrome are usually very dexterous, and a lot of times they're double jointed. Maybe not all the time, but that's a common feature of someone with Down syndrome, is being double jointed and flexible and dexterous. And so that's, this is just kind of an interesting way to expose somebody. And then the autistic one is the same. So it's about an older brother whose younger brother has autism. He's explaining, do you have any brothers or sisters? I do. I have one brother. His name's Billy, and he has autism. Billy and I have fun together. Most of the time we get along, but I don't like it when he freaks out, especially in front of my friends or the other kids at school. So, I mean, it's very honest about the challenges of the experience, and it shows Billy throwing a tantrum and like sort of having a extreme freak out about a situation, and then it shows the brother of like how he how the kids sort of are laughing and make fun of him, but then, and how the brother has sort of learned to love him through it. And it's talking, then it shows people with autism who are doing and accomplishing different things, athletes, artists, people, musicians. So it's very positive. It's sort of this very positive depiction. And, it's showing him sort of being, accomplishing things, and okay, so here's one. It talks about one of the characters, Mrs. Smitty, talked a lot about what it meant to have autism. She said that some autistic kids might have trouble doing what their teachers or parents ask them to do, and other kids might get frustrated and upset really quick when something changes, just like Billy's row of cookies. Like if something's out of order, or if like the plan is not what they thought it was going to be. Most kids with autism like to do things alone, and because they have trouble starting a conversation with others, it's not always easy for them to make friends. Others have trouble learning things like reading and writing and math. Billy needs some extra help, so he has a special teacher who stays with him in class and helps him when he needs it. So this is just a sort of very frank but gentle but positive education for readers who don't have this particular disability, but they want to be exposed to it in some way. This is another one. I have a couple more. Daniel Tiger, Daniel's new friend. Daniel has a friend who has crutches, and so it teaches sort of the etiquette of interacting. Like, it's okay to comment, but don't bump into them. Like, it talks about not bumping into someone who has crutches, and ask their permission before you just touch their prosthetic or their crutches. So it kind of goes through and teaches a little bit of the etiquette of interacting with someone who has, it would apply to crutches, a wheelchair, or any sort of a prosthetic or anything, a brace of any kind. The rules still apply. Another one, this is a little bit more of a intentionally educational book, Don't Call Me Special, and it's about all different kinds of disabilities, and it explains what they are. It explains sort of the ways that they are, that certain disabilities must need to be accommodated, and this has different ones, like physical ones, mental ones, social ones, and but again, it's very positive, like it says, and with a little extra help, children with disabilities can learn and grow and do things they want to, just like everybody else, right? So it's kind of a educational book. There's lots of books like that, but I just got that one as an example. This is the last picture book of this I'll show, is Buddy, the First Seeing Eye Dog, and it's it's an easy reader version, but it's all about the story of this dog who was sort of the first one who helped pilot the training program for the seeing eye dog industry, right? That's even a thing. And so it's sort of history, and like medical history, as well as sort of a cool story about an animal. And I think that I really like that one. Okay, I'm back. I hope you enjoyed that. video blast from the past of me talking about books of children with characters with disabilities. I had a couple more things I wanted to add. One I didn't add because I didn't have the copies of it here. They're all in my office, but I still don't have the copies of it here, but I can't believe I forgot to talk about it. There's another book I wanted to add of a character who experiences a social disorder. I guess I don't know what OCD would be considered, but John Green, he's, my boy John Green, wrote my dissertation about him. I'm a huge, big fan of John Green. And I do have a tote bag that has Turtles All the Way Down on it. And because I went to see him live for the tour when Turtles All the Way Down came out. So Turtles All the Way Down was John Green's most recent novel that came out. It's, I guess, going on 3 years ago now. Fall of 2017 is when it came out. And Turtles All the Way Down features a teenage girl who suffers from intrusive thoughts and thought spirals. She'd be diagnosed with obsessive compulsive disorder, and her experience of OCD in the novel is very similar. Green has said it's very similar to the way the intrusive thoughts and the thought spiraling and getting caught in those loops, the same way that it sort of happens for Green himself. Green suffers from obsessive compulsive disorder. He's been very open about it. He's done interviews about it. And he says that Asa from the book, the main character from the book, her OCD, she experiences it in the same way. Her compulsions do not manifest in the same way that his do. His are personal. He doesn't share what that is, but it's the book is, it's a very accurate sort of portrait inside the mind of someone who is sort of coping with a mental illness on a daily basis. And that's not the quote-unquote plot of the book. There's a plot of the book that's outside of Ace's mental illness, but because it's told from her perspective, her mental illness is a sort of huge part of the whole experience of the novel. And so it's this very intimate portrait of almost like experiencing what it's like to be inside the mind of someone with a mental illness. It's very much, we've talked about a mirror text or a window text or a door text. If this book is not a mirror for you or for the reader, I would say it's most definitely a door, because going through reading this book, I've never been the same since. Like walking there, like I think about mental illness in a completely different way. I think about mental health in general in a completely different way than I did before reading this book. So, Turtles All the Way Down, John Green, and it's a huge. He's a big advocate of getting therapy if you need it, and normalizing therapy. There are scenes in which Asa is with her therapist and talking about her coping mechanisms and her compulsions and how she's managing. And she doesn't always do well. She has to be hospitalized for it. She tries to eat hand sanitizer because she's preoccupied with bacteria, getting bacteria and cleanliness and stuff. So she ends up trying to drink or eat hand sanitizer, and she has to be in the hospital, and it's a whole thing. And so, she's not like this heroic person coping with, I'm fighting. She doesn't do well all the time. And, that's the thing about, she talks to her therapist, and she's not well for a lot of the book, but then she does do well for some. So it really shows the sort of ups and downs of dealing with a mental illness and treating it and taking your meds and sort of taking care of yourself. And it's an illness as if you had diabetes or arthritis or anything else. It's something that you need to go to the doctor for and get your medication for and take care of yourself however you need to take care of yourself, diet or however, whatever helps. Treat it just like you treat a physical illness, because it is a physical illness. So Green has sort of been praised for sort of promoting the experience of having a mental illness. On the subject of John Green, his novel before Turtles All the Way Down came out. The Fault in Our Stars is probably the novel he's most known for. By far, it had, hit movie. It really sort of made him famous. The Fault in Our Stars was 5 or 6 years, 6 years I think, before Turtles All the Way Down, and it very similarly features a character. The two main characters, the two protagonists, the love interests are both terminally ill. So the main character, Hazel Grace, has a oxygen. She has a lung condition, so she has to carry oxygen everywhere. Augustus Waters, the other love interest, has a prosthetic, and he's missing a leg and has a prosthetic. And one thing that is celebrated in that novel is they have there's a sex scene. It's not gratuitous or graphic, but it is very normalized. It's showing that people who are have physical impairments or disabilities of any kind also can have romance and have physical attraction, and they can have, there was a quote from Green, and it said, disabled sex is still sex, and it can be really hot, like they can still be really like enjoyable for the two people who do it. So that's something that's notable in that book. Their best friend, one of their good friends from their support group, is blind, so that's another character who's experiencing a physical disability, and he becomes blind in the course of the novel, and it shows how he copes with that. So I wanted to mention some notable examples from John Green. That's not the only kinds of unique characterizations he's had, but specifically for this particular lesson about characters dealing with physical and mental disabilities. There's another couple of books I discovered over this summer, like really recently, and I was going to have them for the class, but they didn't make the cut, but they're so good. It's these two books, The Insignificant Events in the Life of a Cactus, and then the sequel, Momentous Events in the Life of a Cactus. And so what this is about, it's about a girl. Her name is Avon Green, ironically Green. And Avon was born without arms, like born that way. It wasn't an injury. It was a birth defect. So she was born without arms. So this book is all about her and her character and going through life without, sort of experiencing her disability. She moves to a new school in high school. And there's a bigger plot to it. She and her classmate Connor, I had to look up what his name was. He has a disability as well, and so they sort of bond, and they find an old storage shed at the park, and there's like this whole mystery that unravels, right? So it's not just, this is a girl who has no arms and this is what her life is like. There is sort of an exciting mystery plot beyond that that's pretty cool. But I wanted to mention these new books that I just discovered of a character or characters who have a disability, the main character born without arms, and it's kind of all about just sort of, it's just really, really well done. And so if this particular unit is something that interests you, or it's a subject matter that interests you, if you're a reader and look for something to read, these books are pretty new. I would definitely recommend them. Like I said, they're new discoveries for me. The first one came out in 2017, same as Turtles All the Way Down. And then the sequel, let me see when of course they have all these like reviews first that I can't get to the date. 2019, so it came out last year. So these are fairly recent books in this genre, but very groundbreaking as far as that goes, as far as the depiction of the characters. Okay, well, I guess that's all I had for you. I really appreciate you hanging in. This is the last lecture of this course. This is your last one, so you made it all the way to the end. We talked about a lot throughout this course this semester, and you've read a ton, and I'm very, very proud of you for all of the stuff we've read and talked about and learned. As usual, if you have any questions, get in touch with me and reach out. Otherwise, I will see you in class, and y'all have a good week. Bye.